If it's all right as well, I'd like to ask about what you think the future of NASCAR is going to be like, because a few people are quite concerned, especially after Stuart Haas has announced that they're going to leave after the end of this year. And as far as I'm aware, they haven't found a buyer yet. I know there's a few people looking around there, but what do you see as the future of NASCAR being? Because I've seen some pessimists saying this is the beginning of the end and all this and that. But what's your take as someone with, what is it, over 700 NASCAR starts? I think it was a lot when I looked it up.
So I will tell you this, that they've been writing about NASCAR and the beginning of the end since about 1968. Okay, so that's how long that they have. Reports of NASCAR's death are incredibly premature. And here's what I think, and I will be. There are times over the past 10 years that I question the direction where we were going. What's going to happen? Where will this fit in to motorsports? Where will NASCAR and this sport fit in to motorsports in America? Because IndyCar racing is so competitive right now. I mean, there's some good shows. Drag racing continues to rise. And NASCAR was flat for a number of years. And then came this generation of car. And I think this generation, the car that we have now that they've run for the last 2 or 3 years, is a huge, huge step forward in the evolution of where NASCAR is, or what NASCAR is and where it can go. I think we had capped out with the old car. With the old technology, with the rules we had, where everything was, we were getting close to just being an antiquated sport in a lot of ways. And that's the easiest way and the simplest way to explain it. This new car opens up so much. We've seen that we can race on a quarter-mile racetrack like the LA Coliseum. So if fans won't come to us, we can take the sport to you. We'll come to your neighborhood. We're going to see it this coming weekend in Chicago. If Chicago won't come out to us, we'll go to the streets of Chicago, which means you can go to the streets of Seattle, the streets of Dallas, the streets of Kansas City. There's so many huge markets and huge places that we can open up in this country that you can take this car. It also has allowed, I think, as we saw, Kobayashi and those guys, we saw Shane Van Gisbergen win at Chicago last year. It's opened us up to supercar drivers, to a different type of driver, because these cars are closer to what the supercars are. These cars are closer to what other forms of racing are. In the past, man, it wasn't. They just weren't. It was a step back in time to come to America and drive a NASCAR stock car. So I think when you look at it, that part of the sport is on the rise. And listen, they talk about it in Formula One. They talk about it in IndyCar racing. I don't care what's going on. If the product on the racetrack is not good, if they're terrible races, if nothing happens, it doesn't make any difference. They're going to go away. They're going to go away. Every sport will go away if it's not entertaining to watch. And it has to be entertaining. I think this car opens up the entertainment value a lot more. You mentioned Stuart Haas. And the Stuart Haas thing, in a lot of ways, has nothing to do with racing. You got Gene Haas, who owns a Formula One car. You got Tony Stewart, who was partners, and they were together. And Gene went off Formula One racing, and Tony got married and went off drag racing. So who's going to run the race team? Nobody's running the race team. And it falters, it falls flat on its face, and they're closing the doors. That has nothing to do with the sport. All that has to do with is Tony Stewart's personality and Gene Haas's personality. It's just divorce time. It's time for them to go their separate ways. And the kids, who are the cars, they've got to fend for themselves. So somebody will pick those up. More than likely a track house, more than likely Aspire Motorsports. And these teams will get stronger. And as these teams get stronger, the sport's going to get stronger. So I'm always a glass half full. Listen, it's never half empty. It's always on the rise, man. It's never going down. And so for me, the sport's in a really, really good place and really poised to be in a place to move forward. The big glitch for us, or the big thing on the horizon for us, just as in all motorsports, is going to be fossil fuels and electric vehicles. And where does the sport go then? will the fans come to a quiet racetrack? Will the fans come and watch this? Racing's racing as far as I'm concerned. I don't care whether you're racing cars or kites or bicycles, man. It doesn't make any difference. There's that competition. So that'll be the next big hurdle as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's very interesting you mentioned about the sound. I mean, in 2014, Formula One switched to having hybrid engines, and the backlash back then was unbelievable. The amount of people that were like, "This sounds like a vacuum cleaner. This is a mess. This will never catch on. Formula One is dead." And now, 10 years on, it's more popular than it's ever been. So. Yeah. You can't, and I'm with you. You can't be a glass half empty kind of person. You've got to look on the positives. And if you just listen to all the naysayers, then you're just going to be down in the dumps all the time. It's just, you're always going to be, we always want to improve. We always want to get better. But at the same time, you should realize how far things have come. NASCAR is not doing badly by any stretch. And as well, you mentioned it's the car as well. The car's a fascinating one because I think it was last year they actually ran a NASCAR at the 24-hour Le Mans. I think Jimmy Johnson was one of the guys who did that. And that shows how relevant this car is compared to regular sports cars.
Yeah, and it does because it has so much sports car technology. It has so much open wheel technology that's built in. We had never run the rack and pinion steering. We had never run independent suspension. We had never had sequential shift. We had never had so much stuff. And all of a sudden they just said, okay, you're going to get it all at one time. We're just going to do it all at one time. So it's the difference in taking, and I'll jokingly say that NASCAR was hung in about 1976. And all of a sudden they were like, oh my gosh, it's 2021. We got to get a new car. And they traded in that 1976 model and they got a brand new model. And this model had seatbelts and this model had airbags and this model so it's so radically different than anything that has come along in the past. Is there's not a book. You can't even compare it to anything in the past. So that is the big deal. That's why it can go to Le Mans, as you say. And again, that's why we can go to the streets of Chicago. And again, that's why guys like supercar drivers and guys like Shane can come over here and jump in a car and be competitive right off the bat because there's not that learning curve. They're already there.
Yeah, he was seriously impressive last year. He drove a really great race at Sonoma the other week as well.
Oh, yes.
Van Gisberg. If you wanna hear more from us, you can head over to NASCARchronicle.com. You can find us on the usual social channels, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, on all of those, and of course our Microsoft Start account too. And who do you want to see us interview next here on 5 Minutes With? Just let us know in the comments below for any suggestions. I can't promise it'll be as good as Kyle, but I will do my best to make that happen. See you for the next one, guys.